Basic schools in the country have opened their doors to final year students many months after they were closed down as a result of coronavirus. The main task is to prepare them for the basic education certificate examination. But this comes at a time that the country's coronavirus case count continues to rise. JoyNews' Maxwell Agbagba visited some schools in the Ayawaso East Municipal Assembly and has been speaking also to the Director of Education, who says there will be effective monitoring of all the health protocols.
We are currently here at the Nima cluster of schools, and the Nima cluster of schools is the place where the distribution of COVID-19 PPEs is actually taking place. So you find heads of institutions driving here and coming for their PPE. You find face masks, you'd also find hand sanitizers, there's liquid soap, some of them would also come for Veronica buckets. All of these are parts of the items being distributed here. Hajia Ramatu Gariba, who is the director for the Ayawaso East Education Directorate.
Fortunately, Ayawaso East, we don't have that problem. We have space, and we also have furniture. Fortunately, our MCE gave us over 1,000 furniture last term. So furniture is not a problem. The space too is not a problem because Form 1 and 2 are not coming. So we have space and we have the furniture. So as for the social distance, we don't have problem. Some are even going to be less than 30 in a class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But touch wood. I mean, touch wood. Should we have a case of coronavirus? What mechanisms have been put in place? What health mechanisms have been put in place to ensure the safety of other students?
Well, we have our SHEP coordinators, and this morning, after the distribution, we have the health director coming to talk to all of them, and she will spell out all the modalities. All the schools, public and private, have been aligned to clinics. Okay. And they will be taking care of their temperature, and regularly they will be monitored. So I think that one too is well catered for. The health director is willing and ready, and some few private clinics too nearer to the schools are going to take part in helping to curb this issue. Okay. We shall be going around monitoring. We will go around the schools and we'll be checking all those things.
To find out, what's your assessment of the reopening? You've been going around, and you're even here helping in the distribution of the PPEs. What do you think? What's your assessment of the reopening in this municipal assembly?
Well, I think it's okay. We were expecting that Monday will rather be settled in class, but unfortunately we are doing this today. Apart from that, I think that's fine. Tomorrow when you come, I believe, even getting to afternoon, I believe you will see them in class.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So far, so good. It's not bad. At least we are 60% plus.
So these are some of the face masks. These are tissue papers that will be distributed. You remember President Akufo-Addo in his speech yesterday talked about all of these items, talked about the tissue papers, gallons of liquid soaps. He talked about the face masks. All of them are here, and they are being distributed to the various schools. On a normal day, when you come to a classroom like this, you find the chairs, the desks very close, but that is not the case today. These schools are required to ensure social distancing, in the classroom, and that is what is happening here. Let's speak to some of the students. Let's find out from them, what they make of the reopening of schools.
Because I can get to learn what I've been taught again, because we've been home for so many months, and I'm happy to come to school again because I can learn again so that I can recover what I've been taught already.
Okay, I'm excited because we are in school to do some things and revise, and then we write our final exams.
So whilst you're in school, what are you going to do to ensure that you are safe from the coronavirus?
Okay, yeah. You wear your nose masks, you sanitize your hand, you wash your hand frequently. Yeah.
Well, those masks certainly don't look like the one that the government distributed. Well, did they have them or did they not have them? Did they choose to wear their own? We don't know, but let's find out from other places. Abesori is joining me from the Upper East region, where there was sharp contracts between one private school and a public school at Bolgatanga in that region as the final year student returned today. Well, whilst pupils of Great Victory Academy, a private school, were provided face masks and hand washing facilities by their school authorities, their counterparts at Calbeo Tindosombrigo JHS, which is a public school located in the same area, did not have face masks nor access to hand washing facility. Let's get more as Albert joins me via Zoom. I have Albert, I have Martina as well, so we're focusing a bit more up north. Hi, Albert.
Hi, Gifty.
Albert, so tell us what accounted for this, if you like, contrast between these schools, especially when the other is a public school.
Yes, so I chose these two schools mainly because I've done a story in the past in the community where these two schools are located. That is Tindosombrigo. Now, this is a community known for water shortages and scarcity of water from time to time. In fact, there have been times when the community people have had to depend on a dam in the area to get water. So I was curious to know if the basic school pupils were having access to water, considering the fact that they have to return to school today. So I visited the Great Victory School first, and that is a private school. Now, what is significant to note is that in these two schools, they told me that they had not yet received the face masks that the government is distributing. And so in the case of Victory School, some of the pupils came to school with their own face masks, but then the school know the number of pupils who are final year students or who are in their final year. So they provided 76 face masks for them, and that is their total number. So once you arrive, you are expected to go and wash your hands. Also, they've provided a water facility, a hand washing facility with soap and all of that. So once the people arrive, whether it is the parent or the people comes to school on their own, on their bicycle, they are directed to stop, wash their hands. They have a resident nurse at the school who takes their temperature with the temperature gun. Then he gives them one face mask before they go into the classroom. Okay, so that is what their school authority decided to do on their own as they wait for the government to distribute the masks.
I see.
Now, the other school, which is the Calbeo Tindosombrigo Basic School, also located in the same area, is the public one. And so in their case, because the government face masks haven't yet gotten to them, they didn't have their own face masks. So they came to school like that. Now, in their school, they have a borehole in front of the school, which I thought they would have been using. But they said that the borehole actually belongs to the community, and the peoples, also managed to use it. But then it has broken down. So it gets to a point where when you are pumping water from this borehole, the water doesn't flow. So what they did today was to get 2 plastic buckets and then get some students to fetch water. And then they had this ablution container, the one Muslims use to perform ablution. So they fill that one, and then they take turns to pour the water for themselves to wash hands. But even at the time that I arrived there, that water in that container was almost running out. And so that is the difference between the two schools.
Albert, I'll come back to you, but this is really interesting that because this is one container that has one handle. So what it means is that everybody will have to touch the same handle and pour out the water. I'll come back to you, Albert. Let's see what Martina has. Martina, it's been, what, about 2 hours beyond the time for closing. What can you report from your area? Hi, Martina, can you hear me? All right, we'll bring back Martina, but Rafiq Salam, also for the Upper West region, is standing by for us. Hi, Rafiq. Hi, Rafiq. Martina, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Amazing. So tell us, Martina, I was asking, schools, junior high schools must have closed by now. They were supposed to close at 1 o'clock, we gather. What can you report from your area, Martina?
Yes, they are closed now. The students have gone home. But earlier in the day, I went through some of the schools, and I must say that most of the schools I visited, the students were not wearing masks, and those who had the mask had it in their pockets. And so you ask the person, "Do you have a mask?" He says, "Yes." "Where is it?" Then the person puts it out. So I asked, why were they not wearing the mask? One of the pupils told me that the friends were laughing at her, and so she had to put the mask back in her pocket. So I asked her whether the students laughing and then she being infected with corona, which of them would she prefer? She says she prefers the colleagues laughing at her. So I asked her to wear. And it was to almost all the schools I visited. Most of the schools did not have the PPEs. Yeah, the students were saying that they are yet to receive them. In one of the schools, a teacher confirmed that yes, they are yet to receive them. But the issue is most of them didn't also have water for them to wash their hands like they are supposed to do. And so the students were just not practicing the protocols that were laid down by we're supposed to follow. And so they are not washing their hands. They didn't have sanitizers. They didn't have face masks. And it ran across almost all the schools that I visited.
Okay. Well, certainly these are early days yet. So hopefully the authorities will be watching this and will be getting some cues as to what ought to be done. Martin, I'll come back to you both and Albert so that we find out whether or not authorities in these areas are saying anything about this. What response are we getting? But let me connect with okay, let's go to Anas Sabit. Anas Sabit is in Bono East, is joining us from there. Anas Sabit, Anas, you're reporting that all the schools within which you made checks have received their PPEs. What more can you add? Anas, are you there?
Yeah, Gifty, I can hear you.
Right, go ahead.
Yeah, I've visited a couple of schools here as well. And in fact, almost all the schools I've visited, I have seen on the grounds students all with nose masks. In fact, not apart from the nose masks they came to school with personally, the schools have also provided them with a nose mask from government. I've visited the Teachman Zongo school. I've also visited the Teachman Amial MA school. I've also visited some private schools, and they've all confirmed to me that they have all received the nose masks that were supposed to be handed over to them by governments. Apart from the nose mask, they also confirmed to me that they have received thermometer guns. All the schools have in place thermometer guns issued them by government. They also have Veronica packets where all schools have been, all the places I've visited are using them as and when I got there. Also, the social distancing protocols are being observed in the classrooms because all the classes have checked, all the schools have checked. The maximum number of students I have is with Zongo Early School, who had 63 students, and they've been divided into 3. That is 21 students per class, and the distancing has also been monitored closely. So I'm yet to have any signal that there's a school who is here to receive its PPs as promised by authorities.
I'll come back to you. Rafiq, what do you have? Okay, Rafiq, if you try and unmute for me, I probably can hear you when you speak. But let me come back to you, Albert. Albert, so this peculiar situation with these 2 schools that have very different stories to tell. Apart from these 2 schools, the other schools around, have you received any information on how they're doing? Are the children able to cope with having a mask on throughout? And are they even, you know, respecting the protocols? I mean, what is the talk there?
Yes, so before I visited the 2 schools at Tindon Sobligo, I went through the Catholic cluster of schools. These are mission schools around the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Bolgatanga. This was in the morning. At the time, they were cleaning. And so I didn't get the opportunity to speak to the school authorities or the students because There was only one teacher there the first time I got there, and he said that he wasn't sure if he was allowed to speak to the media, so I should come back later and talk to the headmistress. But then I noticed that they had a poly tank which was full of water, and some of the students were washing their hands there. A few of them were also wearing face masks that, I realized were their own face masks that they had come to school with. But at the time, they were cleaning. So I didn't get the opportunity to interact with them. But then by the time I returned from the Victory School and the Nosobligor School, which are out of town, the other schools had already closed. So I didn't get the opportunity to know the peculiar stories that were there. But I noticed that they also had polytanks that had water in them that the peoples could use. Okay. But not every people was wearing a face mask.
It is indeed the first day, yet we learn from the mistakes and we move on. But we also, most importantly, want to find out what authorities are doing about some of these discrepancies. Finally, for me, Albert, is there any response at all? Have authorities said anything today, briefly for me?
No, we haven't heard from authority yet. There is a circular for the Upper East Regional Education Directorate, which bans teachers and headmistresses from granting interviews to the media. It's been there since 2014. So most of the time when you go to schools to do interviews, public schools especially, they usually don't grant the interview. A few heads will give you access to the peoples, but they themselves wouldn't speak. So we're hoping that tomorrow, maybe the regional minister will visit some of the schools, and then we will get to hear from the authorities in the region.
I almost called you Rafiq. Albert, thank you. Albert, I'll come to you for final word if we get the chance to. But let me bring in Rafiq. Rafiq, can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Amazing. What can you report from the Upper West region?
The situation in the Upper West region is not different from that of the Upper East region. I have visited some few schools here in the Wa municipality, and I can report to you that as early as 8 o'clock, some of the pupils were right at the school. Some even came before the head teachers of the various schools. So I met some of them. They were doing cleaning, and some were sitting akimbo. And so, but one thing that I can report to you is that majority of the students or the pupils that I met in these schools were not on masks. They were not on.
Did you find out from them why they didn't have a mask? Because government.
Veronica buckets around.
Rafiq, I was just asking.
I spoke to them. I spoke to them, and they told me that I asked them those questions why they were not on masks, and they said that their understanding was that they will come to school for them to be provided with a nose mask, and that's why they came without the nose mask. And so I tried to speak to some authorities of these schools, and they won't like to speak to me on record. Like Albert said, there's been a circular from the Ghana Education Service banning teachers or head teachers from speaking to the media. And so it's really difficult to get information from these schools. But we were told that the head teachers have gone to the education office to bring these nose masks around. But the information that we have stumbled upon showed that at the moment there are no nose masks in the municipality for now. They haven't been brought to the region. So most of the schools in the municipality are even closed before the arranged time of 1 p.m. And so a couple of hours they were at school because there were no personal protective equipment for these teachers. Some of the schools have closed early.
Interesting. They closed early. It's interesting to know. Let me bring in. We've gone to the Upper East region. We know that not everybody has the necessary PPEs. We've gone to the Bono East, where we're told that everybody has. But what is the story in the Eastern region? Maxwell Kudeko is there for us. Maxwell, what did you find today?
Well, as at 6:30 a.m., I visited the Malfiti MA Basic School here in Koforidua. And then at 6:30 a.m., I met two of these students waiting or playing in the compound of the school. So I questioned them. You are supposed to report, or classes are supposed to start at 9. It's not 7 yet, but you are here. So the kids told me that they are tired of being sent on an errands daily in their various homes. So like it was just a joy for them for government to reopen school. So they even came to school earlier before the set time. I visited a couple of schools in the municipality, the Fijase Presby School, the Fijase Methodist, ME Zion, and other basic schools in the New Durban North and South municipality. As at 10:30 a.m., most of these schools have not taken delivery of the personal protective equipment promised government. But distribution started around 11 a.m. in the New Durban North and South municipality. Preparedness level at most of the schools were very low. Some were like they were seated idle, waiting for government to deliver the personal protective equipment. The difference is that the basic school seems to be ahead, the preparatory school seems to be ahead of the government school. In most of the preparatory school I visited, like the St. Mary's schools, the Kovo school, you could see that the authority have putting in place enough measures, including checking the temperatures of the students before they allow entry. Almost every classroom has got a Veronica bucket with running water and what have you. So the difference is very clear. As of now, we are told that most of the schools have received their PPEs in the New Durban North and South municipality. In the Yulo Krobo municipality, I visited one school, the Somenya RC JHS. And right from there, you realize that these guys are not prepared. The school was pushy. There was no indication that authorities were going to clear the place. So as at the time I visited, you could see that all wasn't too well with the school. Okay. One observation I made was that most of the students have face masks and they are putting them in their pockets. A few of them are wearing it, and some also don't have the face masks at all. If you ask them, they say that they are waiting for government to deliver the face masks and other protective equipment to them. So these are the quick observation I made from the monitoring I had this morning. Okay. In part of the.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm just going to go around all of you to take your very final words. I mean, this is a very different situation. This is something that we're all not used to. But the things that are coming up right now in all that you submitted today is that there are private schools. The private schools you visited seems to be better prepared and seems to have all the PPEs they needed and all the measures in place. But as against the public schools rather should be having these things. So those are things that when we get the chance to, we can ask authorities to help us on. We also know that a lot of the students are keeping the masks in their pockets. I mean, we know how we used to have new shoes or new slippers, and we'll put our hands in the slippers and walk barefooted because they are new. It looks like that's what's going on. I'm wondering to find out your own perspective of how you believe authorities will be able to look at these mistakes and work on it, so that when tomorrow we go checking, we'll find more. We find better situations on the ground. Albert, I'll start with you for your final words. Based on your experience covering your region, what do you envisage will happen between now and say tomorrow or next week?
I think that for the schools that are waiting for government's face masks to arrive, I don't know when these masks will arrive, because at the Tindon Sobligo school, which is the public school that I visited, the teacher who was there, who didn't want to be interviewed, said that the headmaster had gone to the education office to check, on whether the face masks had arrived, and so to see if he could bring them for the students of the school. So we are hoping that in the coming days, if these face masks haven't arrived yet, they should arrive. The challenge is that most public schools, especially those of them in rural areas like Tindon Sobligo, have challenges with water. There are some that are lucky to be close to boreholes like the one I visited. But that challenge of access to water is likely to be there for most of the basic schools. And we are hoping that maybe TP taps and other innovations like that will help address this problem.
I'm
but
hopeful.
We'll have to see as the week progresses.
Right, by all means. I'm hopeful also that the regional minister, Tango Babayage, is also keeping an eye on this, and I hope that someone will see this and let them know what the problem is on the ground if they have not yet received it. Albert, thank you. We'll let you go. Let me move on to Martina. Martina, from the northern region, you are reporting that some of them have it, but of course they're not wearing it. They're keeping it in their pocket. With your experience, what do you envisage will happen? And in your case, have we had any response from authorities at all?
What we know is that the region has received its PPEs, but they are yet to be distributed. At one of the schools, the head teacher told me that he was waiting for a call from the Ghana Education Service, and once he gets that call from the directorate, he'll be going for the PPEs. But I also must say that this head teacher, who would not obviously talk to me, was also giving pep talk to the students. He was talking about the protocols they need to observe and ensure that they actually adhere to them strictly if they want to be safe. And I think that if that is replicated in most of the schools, if the head teachers speak to these children about the need to observe the protocols, it will go a long way in helping the coronavirus spread in the region. Now, I must say that the northern region itself, a lot of people are not wearing masks. If you take 10, you probably get 1 or 2 people who are wearing masks. And so the children are taking a cue from what is happening with the adults. And so maybe the region will have to step up its campaign when it comes to wearing of face masks.
Martina, thank you. I'm sure that tomorrow we'll be able to come back to you and find out what exactly authorities have done or said about this development. Martina there from the northern region. Let me refer to Rafiq. Rafiq, I know that you have eyes everywhere, in every corner of your area. With the development you've reported on, what do you envisage is going to happen?
I would tell you that the students are happy to be back at school. When I spoke to them, they were really happy that they were excited after staying at home for almost 2 months. They are happy to be back. The teachers here are also ready to teach the children, but what they are lacking is a personal protective equipment, and that's what they are calling on government to provide for them. It's still early days yet, and then it's only today that we are reporting. So we are only hoping that maybe tomorrow, from tomorrow going, things may change in the municipality or the region to a large extent, because a lot of the protocols talk about social distancing, the use of face masks are not being adhered to at the schools. Even when I go to some of these schools, I have to even shout on some of the children to tell them that social distancing, then they will begin to space out. And so Martin also made an important statement talking about the lack of observing this issue of nose masks. In the upper region here, it's also the same. When you can move close to over 100 people, none of them will be wearing face masks. And so it's because of that they are taking a clue from the communities and that they have taken back to the schools. So you go to the schools today. When I go to the schools, I was very worried because you can count about over 100 students. None of them were wearing face masks. And the
Rafiq, if I may just interrupt you. If I may just interrupt you briefly, Martina indicated that for some of the schools, she got information that some have received the PPEs, but they are waiting for some sort of authorization before they distribute them. Do you know of any such situation in your area?
In the case of the Upper West region here, they are yet to receive.
Okay.
They haven't gotten them, and that's the reason why schools in the Upper West region today close early.
All right.
You know, the stipulated time was 1 p.m. By 11, 12 o'clock, most of the schools in the women's were closed.
Okay.
So the personal protective equipment isn't here. The teachers have not gotten them. They are ready to go to school. The teachers are ready. The students are ready to back to school. I don't know them. What they are urging government to do is to do the needful to bring them this personal protective equipment so that they will be able to teach the children, and the children will be able to learn, not to find to pass their examination.
I hope that we'll get a better story to tell with the correction, of course, tomorrow. Rafiq, thank you for joining in with that detail. Let's get on to Bono East region, where my colleague Anas Sabit is also reporting that from his checks, the schools, all the schools there, the basic schools there have received their PPEs. Anas, again, for you, what do you envisage will be happening between now and then? There's one thing receiving the PPEs, it's another thing distributing them, and it's another thing making sure that the children wear it. We know that they're putting them in their pockets. What do you envisage from your perspective and based on your experience of covering this region will happen in the next few days?
Gifty, with regards to the issue of the PPEs, I have been to several schools, and the teachers are ensuring that without the nose masks, students are not going to be allowed into the classrooms. Right. In fact, almost all the schools I visited, the teachers told me these students were even with a nose mask, or they came to school with their own nose mask before they were given the one provided by government. So this enforcement remains key to the authorities in these schools I have visited. In fact, almost all the schools I have visited, all the students were on nose masks, either those they came to the school with or the ones provided by government. Okay. So that there's an that students. What I realized is that apart from the nose mask, instead of getting 3 each, they were provided with 2 each, with a promise that the other one will be brought into the school subsequently. So instead of having 3 nose masks each, they were provided with 2 nose masks each, with a promise that they will add up 1 more later. The only thing I saw missing was the absence of tissue papers. None of the schools I visited were provided with tissue papers, but the head teachers told me that will be provided within the week. So apart from this, I mean, the issue of the tissue papers, almost everything with regards to face masks, Veronica buckets, liquid soaps, hand sanitizers, all the students were given hand sanitizers. And in one of the schools I visited, the head teacher has told the students to all write their names on the hand sanitizer, and it will be taken from the students before they leave for their house, because it is meant to be used in the schools. So the school will be keeping them in the school so that the next morning when they come, they will be handed back to the students so that they'll be able to manage its usage. So so far, that is what I know I've seen on the grounds, and I'm very sure from what I've seen today, the teachers will be able to maintain its usage subsequently.
I sincerely hope so. Nas, thank you. Looks like Bono East is becoming a model region, if you like, as far as the reopening of the basic schools is concerned. And Nas is reporting that everything seems to be going on course, in exception of, you know, one more face mask that's supposed to be received by these students and tissue paper. It looks like everything is on course in the Bono East region. Great news to know. Let's go to Eastern region. Maxwell Kudeko is still hanging. All right, I do have Ivy who is joining me. Let me wrap up with Maxwell, and we bring Ivy in. Maxwell, you've indicated that private schools have these PPEs. Public schools do not have them. I'm not sure if you have heard from authorities there, but of course we know that authorities are being told not to grant interviews to the media. Based on your experience, once again, what do you envisage will happen between now and tomorrow and the weeks ahead, the days ahead?
Well, the distribution of the PPEs in the public schools started late morning, around 11 thereabouts. So we envisage that by tomorrow, each student will have access to these PPEs. But on the issue of adherence to the safety protocols, and the fact that most of the students who have their personal nose masks but are not putting them on, somebody will attribute it to this long-held opinion or cliche that Ghanaians are slow to change. You know, this is not a practice that is often done in their homes. So it's becoming difficult to be used to the practice. So it is believed that if the teachers take them through a series of orientation on the need to wear the nose masks and adhere religiously to the safety protocols, but to go a long way to helping keep all of them on track. one nice thing happened this morning in most of the preparatory schools. In the two preparatory schools that I visited, before classes started, the school authority had an orientation session of a sort to them, trying to expose the children to the need to keep to the social distancing and what about the COVID-19 and all the other relevant information that the kids need to know. They also had the opportunity to allay their fears that there will be mass spread and whatever. So I think that if the public schools also continue with this orientation and engagement with the students, to go a long way, keeping all of us on track within this short period that to be.
And I agree with you 100%. Orientation, reorientation is certainly the way to go, given that they're keeping the masks in their pockets. Thank you, Maxwell Kudako there. Let's wrap this up with Ivy Setoji, who is joining us from the Volta region. Hi, Ivy. Ivy, I'm hoping that you can hear me. What can you report? We've looked at, across the regions. What we're finding is that private schools have PPEs. Some public schools don't have it. They don't also have water. Some don't have tissue paper, etc. Those who have it, some of the students are keeping them in their pocket. What can you report from the Volta region?
Yeah, so it's almost like in the Volta region. Some of the students were provided PPEs from home by the parents. That some of them were not able to use it. They have it in their pocket and they want to see them before
Yeah, unfortunately, we're unable to give you a perfect sound from Ivy's end. We'll try and get that in a report when she sends it subsequently. But I mean, so far the conversation that we've had, we're hearing from our correspondent that students or pupils are keeping the masks in their pocket. It looks like some education is needed there, orientation and reorientation. Maxwell is reporting that some orientation was going on when he visited the private schools. Looks like something we should be doing more. Student engagement to orient them to understand the need not to keep them in their pockets. Private schools are receiving some of the PPEs. The public schools, most of the public schools our reporters visited don't have it. So far, it looks like the Bono East is a model region. They have their PPEs. In fact, except for those who have 2 instead of 3, and those who don't have tissue paper, it looks like everything is on course in the Bono East region. And we're also hearing as well that the teachers, of course, authorities aren't allowed to talk to us. We'll certainly be looking more into this and bring you more. If you live anywhere in these areas and if your children went to school, if you were a teacher yourself, I'd love to hear from you. If you can WhatsApp me on 0540109009. Knowing what we know now, what can we do to improve upon the situation going forward? Well, President of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, Philippa Larson, says the delay in the distribution of the PPEs can actually affect the smooth running and reopening of the schools. She's been speaking to us earlier on the AM show.
We are not in normal times, and parents are expecting their wards to be well protected. And I believe that is why we are putting all these measures in place so that teachers will be able to monitor their children so that maybe in the classroom setting, once we have a limited number of students, we make sure they don't get too close to and all that. Sure that teachers and students are protected.
What has been given to teachers so far?
For now, nothing yet. And in almost all the districts I spoke with yesterday, they received the items yesterday, and probably will begin the distribution this morning. And so that is what is going to happen this morning. We'll be going around to monitor what is happening in all the schools. But we are hoping that all the items will get to the school. We don't want happen to the senior high schools to happen to us. On Friday, when I visited some of the few schools, there were lots of challenges. Some schools have received only one nose mask or face mask or whatever. And we wouldn't want those things that happen at the senior high school level to happen at the JHS level, to be honest with you.
What is a teacher entitled to?
A teacher is entitled to 3 face masks, and just as the students are also entitled to, then the schools are entitled to Veronica buckets, tissue papers, liquid soaps, sanitizers, and all the items that have been mentioned by the president himself. And so these are the items that we are expecting.
So if distribution is now taking place, when do you expect that real lessons will be taught in the classroom? Because if you don't have, in the absence of the personal protective equipment, you can't reasonably go about your duty as a teacher.
That is the challenge, my sister. And even for today, I believe a lot of the schools will be doing education for their students. And so as and when the items are received, the teachers will have to take the children through how to use all the items that have been given. And so for today, I don't know when instructional hours or normal classes will begin. But normally, according to the president and the timetable, we are supposed to start lessons at 9. Meanwhile, the children are not even supposed to do any cleaning and all that. And so this morning, I believe all the schools will be looking at how to clean the compounds and how lessons are going to begin.
You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty Ando Apia. We're taking a look at the reopening of schools for the basic junior high school or the junior high schools, and for the final year students to go back and prepare for their BECA. We've realized a few things, but we're told that any further delays in the provision of PPEs to these schools will slow down their ability to work effectively.